Packers on the Rocks fans, welcome back to yet another episode and the conclusion of what was, in many ways, one of the most important drafts for the Green Bay Packers, really since 2006. A very transitional one at that. The post Rodgers era has begun. And let's go ahead and light this fire by Dave. Let's go ahead and cheers Brian Gutekunst for not only salvaging the Aaron Rodgers trade and the compensation he was able to get for that, but also after last year's draft, you're like, there's no way he can top what he did with that 22 class. Then here he is having another spectacular draft in my eyes. And I would like to think that you agree with that for the most part, while it is still very early.
Yeah, what did it say? It usually takes like a 3-year window to find out kind of how to actually grade them. But now I know there's going to be people upset out there about like didn't take a safety, didn't take offensive line, which offensive line is extremely rare for the Packers not taking multiple of them. There's just so many holes on this team that whether it was lack of depth or lack of talent, that there was no way that we're going to be able to fill in all of them. This is like a 2-year, 3-year process. But I think he absolutely nailed the guys that he actually picked and the positions that he nailed. Like he attacked it aggressively. You know, the saying trusting your board, traded down a couple of times. I mean, this is the most picks we've had. Oh boy.
Really, ever.
Yeah, what, we got 13?
13 of them things. It's a lot. That's a lot of players for us to be doing our homework on and research.
Cheap labor.
Exactly. And we don't have to, you think about those last four in the seventh round, that's really just not having to compete with other teams to pick up those unrestricted free agents. One other thing about Gutekunst, Dave, and was hoping you could give a toast to the man if you do have a beverage in front of you. I sure hope that, yeah, it's we'll say it's 6 a.m. Central Time that we woke up to do this post draft recap. How many over under 5 for Brian Gutekunst dipping into his beer fridge in the garage last night?
I don't know. Maybe after it, he probably had like 1 or 2. I mean, it depends on like what day you're talking about here. But like
last night after the draft when he got home at midnight.
Oh, when he got probably had 1 or 2. Maybe he had 1 or 2 during the draft too.
I hope so.
But
he deserves it.
There was a lot of late round value that I liked in this draft. We're going to start at the top and work our way down, but the whole point of the late round is just kind of spread it out. You just kind of pick your high risk, high reward guys where it's kind of like it's a crapshoot. So it's kind of just like a shotgun blast, and hopefully one of them sticks. You know what I mean?
Swings at the plate that Brian Gutekunst and Ted Thompson have said for so many years now. We want as many swings at the plate as we possibly can. We rather bat 300 with 13 picks than 300 with 7.
The funny thing is, Brian's actually historically better in the beginning of the rounds than he is at the later rounds, where Ted like scooped up so much value through like rounds 5 through 7, and Gutekunst's track record isn't as good at the bottom of the rounds as Ted was.
When you think about his, what is it now, 5 drafts that he's been a part of?
Yeah.
6? You just like you, I thought we were going to double up in a particular area late. We've had running back be a hit for us in the past. Offensive lineman is another one that Gutekunst has a tendency to. And then this year we're doubling up on tight end very early. A few quick takeaways before we hop into the first round and get some initial impressions as the game plan for today. What's our breakdown of these players? And then last but not least, you got to get in where you fit in, Dave. So what's our expectations for this new rookie class and embracing the Green Bay Packer culture? Like my takeaways were, and this is going to be pretty common, is Jay Love, we got the man some help. Leroy Butler said it on back-to-back picks. I'm like, damn. I'm like, these both must be pass catchers in the second round they were taken. Sure enough, it was. So we're giving Jay Love every possibility that he can to be successful. And think about how nasty this skill position group is going to be in the next few years that we can get into. Also, we bolstered up the pass rush interior and exterior.
Yes.
And last but not least, we maybe have another replacement for another Packer legend out there. We'll talk about that later in the show. But starting with the very first round, Dave, I know we had a bit of a live reaction and there was a delay in my
Yeah, that's
stream versus your stream and the TV. But now that you've had a couple days to sit and think about it, like what was your gut reaction when Vanessa was picked? And then also now that we've had 48 hours to digest it, how are
yeah.
we feeling about the guy that has the nickname Hercules and David Bakhtiari called him the Ken Barbie?
I really like it. I think you need it for right now because Gary's going to be out, but also down the line, Preston's going to not no longer be on the team. So it's a young, high motor, you know, bull rush of a guy that can get after the quarterback. And everyone was like, "Oh, safety and wide receiver and stuff," but there's certain positions that you just have to target in the first round, and that's a premium edge rusher and a quarterback, or like a cornerback, or offensive line. Like those are the four that like I blue chip guys. So Goodkins found his guy, and the funny thing enough is we took him, and the Patriots traded out of the pick right after we took him. Because there's something about Iowa guys that the Patriots and the Packers both love, and it's kind of the same thing with the Steelers and the Packers with wide receiver that they kind of toggle over the same guys. So I thought it was pretty interesting that the Patriots just traded out of it as soon as we took him. When everyone's like, "Oh, took him too high," well, if you like your guy, you take your guy. I don't care if he's 20th or 14th. If you like your guy, you take him.
And a lot of people had him really in like early mock drafts. As it went on, those players tended to change to others. But Vanessa was a hot favorite early on when the mock drafts came out about 2 months ago. And I thought originally, I'm like, this has to be a reach for Vanessa. Then, like you mentioned, the Patriots traded back. They love their white pass rushers. And then the pick following, the Jets took Will McDonald out of Iowa State. And I'm like, well, that makes me think that he would not have been there if we were to trade
Yeah.
back into the 20s. And it is their guy. And to that, uh, he's got, I don't know how many moves in his arsenal. The bull rush is his go to. And I think a lot of Packer fans have seen today the clips of him and knocking Skaronski from Northwestern on his keister and Paris Johnson from Ohio State. Those are two of the top tackles in this draft. And this is a player that will take time to develop, just like Rashawn Gary. Rashawn didn't come out of college with a ton of
No.
pass rush moves, but he learned from the likes of Z-Man and Preston, the Smith brothers, and look where he's at. He's a top 10 pass rusher, if not five. And the athlete himself, Dave, he's a freak. We were talking about this yesterday. He added, what was it, 200 pounds in his freshman year or 80 pounds?
Yeah, I think he added 60 pounds as his freshman year. And then we talked about it before the draft, but so like RAS scores, which is like how much of an athlete you truly are. So for one, he's like top percentile in pass rushing RAS score for like his position group for this specific year. The funny thing is, out of 10, he scored a 7 on the RAS score at wide receiver, which is ridiculous. And he would have been in the top. He would have been the top RAS score for the tight end position. So this dude just can go. Like he can just match up. Like, and I'm not saying like, oh, they're gonna move him to those positions. I'm just trying to give the audience like an example of like where he would have lined up if he just transferred to a different position. Like,
Yeah, and he does. I tell you, I don't even think he has to visit the combine. You just take a look at this dude. There's a picture of him with his jersey hiked up, and he's 280 pounds and still has abs. I'm like, this is like an Aaron Donald type physique, insane genetics. Yeah, 60 pounds his freshman year. He only played 50% of the snaps at Iowa. He started interior, then kicked him out exterior to play outside. And even with 50% of the snaps, he was still able to rack up 6.5 sacks. He has a hockey background, which I think helps a ton. They asked Brian Gutekunst how much they think that carries over into the NFL. And my pro comp for this guy, if he can be similar to him, I'd like to think that we have a hit. Is Aaron Campman also a fellow Iowan defensive end, where he moved around during his time at Iowa. It took him a couple years to develop. I think he panned out quite nicely. One season, he even led the NFL in sacks and was our all-time sacks leader at one point.
Yeah, and as the draft went kind of progressed, I had less worry about this, but like he is a guy that could kick inside. So it's like, okay, if you have Gary and Preston back, okay, he could move inside and be like kind of like a Dean Lowry role, and it might not be his best position at the time, but it's a guy that could get after the quarterback from the interior next to Kenny. And then, oh, you have Gary out or Preston moves on, you could kick him outside. So he's kind of like what they saw with Zadarius when he came back in that playoff game. Okay, we'll rotate him outside, we'll rotate him inside, we'll move him all around. Don't kind of know where he's going to line up. That rover role, right?
Yeah, I remember Z-Man wreaking havoc when we lined him up over center against the Vikings, like third string center. What was it in 20 to win the NFC North? And yeah, you could line him up all over the field. This whole entire draft can be summed up by one word, which is versatile. You
Yes.
can line this guy up everywhere. And then speaking of expectations and what lies ahead for this rookie, he's a day one starter. He has to
Yeah.
be.
Yeah. And I think we'll kind of leave it at like where we expect their roles to be, and then maybe over the summertime we'll get into kind of what kind of statistics we kind of could see from these guys when we find out what roles they actually anchored down. But yeah, I think he's a day one starter, or at least like you're gonna probably see 60% of the snaps, something like that. Like it's gonna be higher than Gary. Like Gary kind of didn't see the field because they brought in the mega deals of Preston and Zadarius when they got Gary. So I think it'll be like a true rotation for him, where they'll have packages and it'll be like less snaps than Quay got his rookie year, but he'll see the field quite a bit.
Yeah, he won't be limited to 10 snaps like Rashawn because we need them now. This is a different time for
Yeah,
the Packers. Used to be it's a slow burn and a slow rollout. You look at Devontae Wyatt, you look at Christian Watson and countless others. We don't throw these guys to the wolves. It's like, hey, we'll give you 10 to 15 snaps the first 8 games. We'll see how you do, and then we'll add some more bandwidth to it. And for those wondering, he scored a 9.3 on the Raz. Dave, our first 4 out of 5 picks to the Packers MO
yeah.
had incredible RAS scores.
That's what it's like. Hey, like it's kind of the old thing of they take track stars and basketball players and try to fit them into a football player. It's like, okay, if you could run, you could jump, and whatever. Like that, yeah, they like athletes so they can kind of cross train them in different positions.
Yeah.
But
Hey, copycat league. The Chiefs won the Super Bowl. They've been there just about the past 4 or 5 seasons, and the NFL is getting faster. They draft a lot of speed.
yep,
Gutekunst said in his post draft presser, "Speed kills." Which brings up the next player moving to the second round. I thought this guy was another reach, only having played 2 games. He did score a 9.8 on the Raz, which is also insane. Dave, I'll leave it up to you to break down our Oregon State tight end, another Luke, but this one is Luke Musgrave.
yeah, he's kind of the stuff that I'm getting from him is he has very big boomer bust potential. The bust because I believe he has a pretty heavy like injury streak where he just struggles to stay on the field. So I guess kind of I don't want to say a fragile guy because these guys are getting into car crashes like every single week, but he gets beat up more than most. But he's like I can't come up with a seam stretcher, and he's got some speed to him, and kind of to double up here, not to take away from Musgrave, but package the tight ends together. The first thing I thought was, okay, we might have our Gronk and Hernandez. Like it just seems like two big mauling tight ends that have speed that catch, contested balls. And I think that really is going to help Love is, hey, we have the middle of the field is available to you now.
These are your best friends. Lean on them as much as possible. Boomer bust is the right way to put Luke Musgrave. Another, whether it's versatile, I don't think he's as good inline as he is outside. I'm not even sure if he's that great of a blocker, but huge upside pick. This is all about potential because his productivity isn't there. He's a true athlete. He's got sure hands. You watch his tape. He only had one drop in his whole entire collegiate career. And speaking of athlete, they timed him at 20 miles an hour in the Senior Bowl. Like Christian Watson had a speed against the Bears and Eagles of like 22. This guy's coming in at 20 miles an hour. And I always like players that have multi-sport backgrounds. Kenny Clark had a wrestling background coming into the NFL. I think that helped him out a ton. Hockey is another one I think that helps out for balance and coordination and physicality. Luke Musgrave was a ski racer in high school, believe it or not.
That's some good research there, bud. The Packers are actually starting to kind of go more towards this trend. And you kind of start with Gary that started the trend of we don't care what your stats look like in college. Like you just have to show to us that you're a supreme athlete that can stay on the field like in the NFL. And like we'll teach you the rest and you'll become productive in the NFL. That kind of everyone was looking at Gary and they're like, oh, he only had 4 sacks. Like he's not looking great. Like what they took him at 12. This is kind of the same thing with Musgrave, where and it's kind of almost like the same thing with Watson too. Like everyone was like, oh man, he's from South Dakota State. Like only had 30 catches or something like that, and then but his actual physical measurements translate to the NFL. This is exactly like Musgrave.
100%. The only difference is compared to years before, we need these players to contribute ASAP. Yeah. There's no time to sit back and draft and develop all too much. But hey, expectations we have none, so let them go out there and make their mistakes and learn the hard way and learn on the job as is.
The learning curve is very much going to be like a week 4 drop pass for a first down that could potentially lose us the game. Like that's the learning curve where beforehand we would sit the rookies and they would be doing that at practice and it would be behind the scenes and no one would have no idea. This is going to be very much out in front of the public eye kind of spotlights on you. We need you just because we need depth and we need bodies at this point. And we need these guys to progress because this isn't a Super Bowl year. This is probably not even playoff year. This is going
Excuse me, Dave. What? I thought we're making wild card round and going to have a run the table type playoff appearance. One last thing about Musgrave before moving to our second round pick, and you brought it up before. Gutekunst did a great job of trading back to get his guys. The draft board held up really well. Luke Musgrave can't break a tackle to save his life. You watch his film. He's great at. He's great at catching the ball, getting down the field, but as soon as anybody makes contact on him, he goes down like a loaf of bread.
As long as he catches it, I don't care.
Exactly. Yes. Hey, get down the seam of the field, level hit you for 20-yard gain. That's all we need. And
we've had people like that before. I mean, that was Bob Tunyon after his ACL surgery. He just kind of folded like a lawn chair.
Yeah, and Jimmy Graham was the same exact way. Devin Hine commenting in, wild card easy, hello, sir. Have you seen our schedule? We're making the wild card, deep playoff run. The transition is here. Dave, you at least know that I'm kidding.
I was going to say, before the draft, Devin might have been our slot wide receiver. So, I mean.
he was at least tight end 1. Him and Tyler Davis
were going to Tyler Davis would have had a camp battle. It would have been a camp battle. But so we'll go to Jaden Reed here. I think he flew under a lot of people's radars, and I think also a lot of people saw him going like 3rd or 4th round. But what I said previously, if you like your guy, you take your guy. What I was reading was the teams that value wide receiver more highly on their board: Steelers, Packers, Kansas City Chiefs, all had this guy projected in the 2nd round. He's a shifty guy. You mentioned it to me. He could do a Tyler Urban role of the sweeps. I have him as our backup kick returner and punt returner. I know you think of him a little bit higher than that, but I just have too much love for Keyshawn to go that route. Smaller guy, but oh my God, his contested catches just blow you away. This guy just goes up and gets ball.
He's a dog. He's a true dog. LaFleur said it twice. Him and Jair have the same type of mindset. We'll see if he can back his up like Jair and how much he chirps. Dave, I'll go ahead and throw out my bold prediction because I said it yesterday and I'll stand behind it like your Rich Bisaccia. Not as much of a prediction, but hey, it can happen. There's a realistic possibility of it. My bold prediction is that Jaden Reed will surpass or supplant K9 for punt return duties week 1.
I don't like it.
And we'll have our all pro. He'll stay on kick return. He'll focus on his nickelback role. And Jaden Reed, if you listen to this guy talk, he reminds me a lot of Greg Jennings. He's about as polished of a speaker. Like our PR team won't have to do all too much with him compared to maybe a couple of other players. That's always a great thing to see how much they come in, like a Sam Shields, and then they develop their communication skills as they go along. You listen to this guy talk, he's articulate, well spoken. I love his attitude. He's got the confidence of Jair. You can and Gudikins and LaFleur said you can play him inside or and out. Yes, he's on the smaller side, but his physicality, his shiftiness, I think he's like very similar to Zay Flowers, who was on a lot of people's boards the number 1 wide receiver in this draft. Pat Mahomes worked out with him.
He doesn't shy away from contact.
This might be one of the steals in the draft. He had low productivity, is 600 receiving yards, but the year prior he had 1,021. And while it doesn't fit the Packers' typical mold of a wide receiver, like I brought up to you, it's a wide receiver corps is a lot like a basketball team. We need to find our point guards. We need to find our forwards. We need to find our centers. We've got our centers and our forwards in that double tight end combo. And now we have our slot guy. We got our two X. We got our X and we got our Y in Dobbs and C-Dub.
This is, I like the basketball team comparison. This draft kind of, it's going to be a young squad. It's going to be a fun squad, though. I mean, Love's going to have plenty of guys that he could go drop the ball to. Especially my favorite pick of the draft, Tucker Kraft, man. The personality of all personalities.
Dave, you're doubling up. That was going to be one of my questions there at the end. Who's your favorite player and most impactful in rookie? Both of us, same page. We're both going. The guy from small town Timberlake, South Dakota, 500 people. He says yes, sir, to the female reporter for the Packers and says, sorry, I had a couple beers here, sitting back and waiting to be drafted. This is my favorite pick of the draft too. He reminds me of my hometown. He had a grad-like party for his NFL draft party in Timberlake. You had the folding chairs, the fold-up white tables. Ryan Walker may have been in attendance singing Wagon Wheel at 2 a.m. Dave, somebody probably would have asked to borrow one of your Zins or Lippers. This guy has Packer written all over him.
Yeah, it's just a barn party in South Dakota, man. And he's like, man, the great like country line if you're into that, but like the stars aligned with the South Dakota sky is how he now did the analogy for going to Green Bay. I mean, he's going to be a fun dude to watch, and I mean his game matches up with his personality too. Like Packer fans are going to love the Kraft cheese.
They will, and Hein brought it up. Thank God he wasn't taken Reed wasn't taken in the 3rd round. This can be the guy to break the 3rd round curse for the Packers.
Yes.
I fully believe. And you brought up the Gronk Hernandez comparison. You go on YouTube and look at videos. People are comparing Tucker Kraft to Rob Gronkowski. He's a little bit shorter, but similar type of build. And unlike Luke Musgrave, you watch his highlights, he catches the ball, he's bound to break at least one tackle every single time. His yak, which Packer fans love, is beyond the roof.
Yeah, I'm really impressed with what Brian did. I thought they'd go tight end, double up at the position. I was thinking they would do something like a 2nd round, 3rd round tight end, then do something like 6th round. But Goody just went after it and said, "Hey, I'm taking the top 2 guys out of this tight end class, and just we're gonna maximize this position room." Tyler Davis, you're back to special teams duty. And I think the DeGuara H-back role is going to play a part in it too. Because can you imagine Musgrave and Kraft and then DeGuara at H-back? That'd be a fun
It's
little
a ton,
formation.
ton of size, and touched upon it earlier. Think about what this Packers team and the skill group, the pass catchers, will look like in the years of 2025, 2026, when they've all had a few years to play together. This nucleus, I'm through the roof about it. These are the sexy picks that Green Bay Packers fans have been clamoring for years on end. And my pro comp is another Packer player back in the 90s. Mark Chimura is who I see Tucker Kraft forming
Yeah.
into. He's going to be another best friend for Jordan Love. He's not going to stretch the field as much as Luke Musgrave, but I see him being that safety valve on third down to help move the sticks.
Little flat routes, hook routes, break a
Yeah,
tackle, and get upfield. Yep, I completely see it.
100%. Same page for round 3. May luck be with you, Tucker Kraft. We're pulling for you, buddy. I
Man,
don't think he needs it though.
who you got next? I have good vibes from him. I really do. I think that'll be the money pick.
It is. He's everything we want and then some. He's like my AJ Dillon type Packer player. Yeah. The next up we have this guy scored a 9.2 in the RAS. Packers love it. Colby Wooden out of Auburn, defensive tackle. He's a little light in the pants. He only weighs 280. The NFL is changing though, and it's all about getting after the pass rusher. And this guy's strength does lie in getting after the pass rusher. Great productivity. I'm curious to see why he fell to the third round. Maybe because of his run stopping ability, but he did have 6 sacks his last season, 3 forced fumble. For a defensive tackle to have that type of productivity and to fall to the 4th round when he's projected to be 2 to 3, another great pickup by Goody.
Yeah, I'm going to be honest. Watching his tape confused me a little bit because he wears number 25 in college. And so I would be looking at the defensive line. I would see 25 come in here, blow up the quarterback, and I'd be like, okay, did like the guy that we drafted fill the gap and the linebacker like smacked him? And then it took me a second to realize, oh, he wore 25 in college. But yeah, we don't care about the run. This was a go get the quarterback. This is a passing league draft. Goody attacked this draft how I want him to attack it. But the position groups were just different ordered in the rounds, right? I didn't expect them to go D line, I think, as high as they did. I thought maybe use a 7th, use a 6th on defensive line, even though it was like a high need for us. But he bolstered kind of that defensive line, interior defensive line, and edge in this draft. He's a fun dude. Got a blocked kick as well, so it could help on the special teams. Like you said, a little light, but Green Bay, you take a year and these guys come back year 2 and they are 45 pounds heavier and just, thicker dudes. So he might just need some gym time, but I'm excited about it. It's kind of like a Kiki pick, right?
It is, yeah. It just makes me curious. TJ Slayton, get ready to gobble up 2 blocks at one time, because as it stands, you have Kenny. Yes, he's a great run stopper, but he's known for getting after the passer. Later on in the season and getting up to 7-8 sacks. Devontae Wyatt, he's much more of a pass rushing defensive tackle, and then you pair it with Colby Wooden as well. Hey, you can go ahead and gash us for 5 yards, but when it comes up third down, we're gonna pin our ears back, and we're getting after the QB.
Yeah. That's all I have to say about that too.
Yeah, that's really it. We got defensive line pass rush help. Quay, let's hope that in year 2 that you're making that jump. You're able to get off blocks much more, maybe even move. That's a whole different discussion. Like letting him get after the passer and lining up outside, and what him and Vanessa and Rashawn Gary are going to look like in a couple of years down the road. But that brings us to round 5, the first Packer player taken that was a pre-draft visit. Like brought up in the past episode, we usually take about 20% of them.
Yeah.
This one wasn't quite as much. We took 3 pre-draft visits. And this one is a guy that I really like. The Packers, it may have been their favorite player in the whole entire draft for taking him in the 5th, is Sean Clifford, quarterback, Penn State.
Yeah, I'm hearing so he won the battle from Will Levis to be the Penn State quarterback. 4-year guy. I think a 4-year starter, right? Was there 5 years? Am I correct on that?
Your
They
money.
they got him for his brains, his study habits and stuff. He's not gonna surpass Love. I mean, if things really go downhill, he might just be a bridge guy. But I think he's there to be kind of like almost like the grad student in the room of like here, like apparently he's like a really smart film guy, takes like huge notes. So I think they basically got him as an extension to the coaching staff to kind of help Love like intellectually with the offense. Not that Love doesn't understand it, but I think that's was their purpose there. Of we're just
Yeah,
going to get a
he'll
really
be
smart dude.
really great, and you need that in the backup quarterback. You need that clipboard guy on the sidelines who. Remember those years of Tim Boyle relaying plays between LaFleur and Rodgers, and sometimes the
Yeah.
confusion. Rodgers saying that, "Hey, I'm not getting the call," when he's screwing with LaFleur. He's sort of that mediator between the two. And yeah, you do need someone that's really cerebral. And Sean Clifford checks that box, beating out Will Levis. That speaks volumes of player he is. The big game's not too much for him. He won the Rose Bowl last year, and my favorite part about him, as I mentioned in the pre-draft show, is he's amazing throwing on the run. Whether you roll him out left or roll him out right, he can make those passes with accuracy on the run. So hey, maybe we don't need to go out and get a veteran. We know we don't have the purse strings for it to go out and spend
Yeah.
really any money on free agents. But hey, this year maybe we don't need a Doug Peterson type backup.
That's a good comp. That's nice. Going around.
Future Super Bowl winning head coach Sean Clifford.
Oh, can you imagine if that happens like 12 years from now and he just pulls up this random clip from YouTube? And then we go back to wide receiver. We get Wicks out of Virginia Tech. Or I'm sorry, Virginia, not Tech, just Virginia. I really like what they did with the wide receiver core this year in the draft. Of just kind of these. They didn't really. Would you say they fit the Packer mold of who they typically go after? It felt like a little outside the box for me.
This guy checks about. He is 6'2". He's towards 200 pounds, and you can call him Tay. It's Dante Vion, something similar to that. But we got another Tay on our hands, and if he's
All right.
happy, he does check the box of height for the Packers for sure.
Yeah.
Dave. I don't want to. I brought this up before. I don't want to bring up the drops because he had a case of them last year.
I don't think he has this. All right, so he'll be an MVS possibly.
Just not quite as fast. This
Yeah.
is a player. It's potential. They're really hoping that he can return to form of his 21 season. He did set school records at Virginia that year. 20 out of his 57 catches that year went for 20 plus yards. So big play threat. He's also pretty shifty for being 6'2". And if there's a contested ball similar to Jaden Reed, this guy's coming down with it almost every single time. He can win those jump balls near the red zone or just chuck it upfield like a 500 playing the schoolyard days. That's what you have to like about Tay Wicks is that we're taking a bit of a gamble on him, but potential huge upside if it does pan out. And I know your guy is Samari Toure, and Samari Toure is a better route runner than Tay. Is that I could see Tay getting to that wide receiver 4 position. The one drawback for this guy is that he had a tough time learning the new offense. That was the reason for another dip in his productivity his last year. It's like, hey, if you're having a tough time learning a new collegiate offense, it could also take him some time in the NFL to pick up the Packers playbook.
Yeah. All right. I think we go round 6, we go Carl Brooks. I think I pegged this guy as my possible dark horse to be like, that's the guy that emerged out of the late round Flyers. Freakish like body, like 300 pounds, big dude, fast dude, quick dude. Mac player out of Bowling Green.
I was gonna say, Dave, are you gonna shout out the Mac?
I'll shout out the Mac. Let me build it up the crescendo there.
Are we showing some love to the Maction?
Yes. So
okay, good.
The highlight for him was he was, a man among boys. Like he was just wrecking the Mac. 8th best, I think 8th best pressure rate in the nation, and I think he had
Wow.
the ninth most sacks in the nation. So that's another guy, big dude, interior guy that, hey, let him get 6 yards of carry. Just, put the quarterback into the ground. Like, I like his upside a lot. He's another guy that, small school, small conference, but they liked his body type. They liked his, I think he scored a little bit lower on the RAS than normal, but then kind of the zone the Packers usually go into. But high production guy.
Dave, like per usual, we're on the same page. Couldn't agree more. Dark horse pick for the Packers. Another versatile one too. He played a lot of. He stood up, played a lot of outside backer or outside defensive end. He is kicking to the interior. He sort of made that switch in the Senior Bowl when he's like, "Hey, I want to show that I can play interior defensive line." So these third down pass rushing opportunities. He's somebody that you could kick out or leave inside. He is big enough to go inside at 300 pounds. He had 10 sacks last season and like 26 overall for BG. When he did have an opportunity to go in the transfer portal, they won like 0 games in one of his seasons. They're like, "What had you sticking around with Bowling Green with the stats that you had?" He's like, "Well, there's a lot of loyalty to it," and he thought it could really help his draft potential by sticking around and having those boast those type of numbers for the
the
Bowling
the
Green.
Packers really went after, and it's been their MO for a couple years now, but the Senior Bowl standouts. That's like a
Yeah,
huge check mark for them. Like, how do you compare to other superstars in this draft?
absolutely. Yeah,
I agree, Devin.
whether
They're
it's
gonna they're gonna put out, like, I kind of call it the turbo package. You're gonna have Gary, Preston, Clark, probably Quay, and then Ness out there, and it's just gonna be like, go get the guy. It's gonna be a lot of those unique undersized packages that you saw against the 49ers, where they had like one Mississippi before they're in his lap.
wasn't even fair throughout that whole entire game. What was the package called with Mike Neal, Julius Peppers,
NASCAR.
uh,
I think it was NASCAR.
NASCAR or Nitro, something
Yeah,
like
it was.
that?
I thought. Yeah, I thought
Yeah,
they called it their NASCAR package.
and Clay Matthews too. You also had Nick Perry,
Yeah,
NASCAR, Nitro, whatever it is. You're getting back to that where you don't have just one or two pass rushers, but a whole entire line that can get after the QB. And then our second 6th round pick is the potential replacement in Lua, mentioned at the top of the show. Could be replacing the Packers' all-time leading scorer, Mason Crosby.
leading scorer and Packers franchise record for consecutive games played. So that streak will start over. He's an interesting dude. Coming off an ACL last year, kind of had a down year. Everyone's kind of going a little bit awry because he only made 70% of his kicks, and he was struggling from beyond 49 plus, so 50 yarders he was having trouble with. His brother is also in the NFL. His brother played for the Raiders, so he knew Bastascia. So I guess he's getting kind of an inside track on that. I mean, it was time, right? You had to draft I think drafting a kicker when you have 13 picks is the right move to go instead of like waiting for a UDFI to just fall into your lap. So I'm not against taking a kicker in the draft when you have that many picks. It'll be an adjustment period. I think I was texting you, like, my daughter's favorite player for some bizarre reason is Mason Crosby, because I think we used to watch we still watch games together, but her first like click of watching the Packers with me was Mason kicking a game-winning field goal, and the announcer just shouted out Mason Crosby, and that stuck with her. So it'll be, the old regime is starting to kind of die away, and it's kind of a new era in Green Bay football where we're going to have to get attached to younger players and kind of just ride the wave of the struggle and the joyous moments too.
Dave, I don't want to give up Mason Crosby and barely getting it to the 10-yard line on his kickoffs. I'm not
Yeah.
I'm not ready for that. Dave, you're not going to like to hear this either. The downside to this guy, besides not having a ton of successful kicks from beyond 50s, like 5 of 17 from 50 plus, he struggles getting touchbacks.
They still have a kicker on the practice squad. Maybe they just picked him and be a camp battle. Like,
Yeah, I mean,
they're not all.
I'm not
13,
sure if this is the guy that's going to win the job. He has a weird kicking motion too.
Yeah, not all 13 of them are going to stick. There's no way all 13 draft picks have a roster spot locked up. So, I mean, who knows? Maybe a UDFI will come in. I don't know, but right now he's a Packer. He got drafted by the Packers, so we're going to be rooting for him.
We are. All the best to you, Anders Carlson. Welcome to Titletown. We're glad to have you. He's from Colorado too. He knows all about Mason Crosby. Carl Brooks, you got yourself a spot on the 53. Don't worry. And then moving on to 7th round, we took 4 of these guys, the crapshoot of the draft. Even Carrington Ballantyne, one of our 7th round picks, called it the crapshoot once you get to that late in the draft. The very first pick is that cornerback out of Kentucky. Dave, I know that you said this is somebody that should have potentially been taken early on in the draft and was a bit of a win in the 7th round.
Yeah, I have been hearing pundits say steal of the draft. I think he was pegged for a 3rd or 4th round. I mean, and these guys, I know they do their homework and stuff, but these guys, there's an overlay between the departments in the NFL that kind of know what they're looking for, and these guys like Mel Kiper that think these teams know what they're looking for. So there's a little bit of a gap there. Maybe he kind of just fell through the cracks. I didn't look up the reasons he fell. I don't believe it's injury related. I don't know if it's character. I don't know. Maybe. But big physical dude out of Kentucky. That press man that we all love to see out of Jair and that boys when they're allowed to play it, or they go rogue and they play it. Otherwise, this dude might struggle playing 10 yards back in Barry's defensive scheme. But he likes to be in the guy's face. SEC corner. I like it. It's kind of like you're take a flyer on, dude.
Who knows if we'll make the 53? It's going to be through special teams. Did play it in college. I think the one reason that he did fall back later in the draft, well, 2 reasons. Number one, he's still green to play in the cornerback position. He switched over to playing cornerback his last year in high school. So there's that. He's still new to it, learning the position. And then second, he only had 1 interception this whole entire collegiate career. A ton of PBUs. He has long arms. It may be somewhat difficult for him to make the 53, but Carrington Ballantyne, your path to the locking up a roster spot, just like a lot of other players or undrafted free agents, is get yourself on teams, make best friends with Rich Bisaccia.
Now we're going to 7th or second 7th round pick. Running back Lou Nichols, Central Michigan.
Correct. Yes, the third Lou Nichols. There's 2 other ones before him.
So we are in an interesting year at running back. We have Aaron Jones, who's due a lot of money next year. We have AJ Dillon, whose contract I believe is expired after this year. Am I correct on that one?
You're spot on, Dave. I don't want to hear it. I'm gonna act as if he has still 2 more years left in his rookie deal because that's my guy.
This guy's comp is Garrett Blunt. So, if they're unsure about AJ Dillon, this could be Dillon's replacement. I think Jones is probably out the door next year too. So maybe what you do is you go this guy to kind of fill the spot for AJ, and then next year you take a running back high up in the draft, because running backs are just a constant cycle. You want to get them drafted and you want to play them right away on the rookie deal, because kind of after the rookie deal, their bodies might be shot or other stuff. But late round flyer on running back. Packers keys for that is usually you got to be good at pass pro, and you got to kind of maybe be like a special teamer for like the 3rd round or for your 3rd running back spot. But they value pass pro very highly. If you can't pass pro for the Packers, you're not getting on the field as a running back.
He's got a big lower body. Good comp with LeGarrette Blount. Not quite as big of him, but a similar type of style. Right. Compact, big lower body. He can withstand the punishment of being a 3-down back. If Aaron Jones leaves, and even if we don't re-sign or extend AJ Dillon, give him a 2nd contract. And another huge upside pick like Tay, the wide receiver out of Virginia. We're really hoping that he can return to the form of his 21 season. We had 1,800 rushing yards that year. they say the reasons for his dip in productivity is last year is because they had a lot of turnover with their offensive line that they were rebuilding. He was plagued with a few injuries here and there, but yeah, pass pro. He can also catch the ball pretty well too. Really like this guy as a 7th-round pick. I definitely see him taking Patrick Taylor's spot on the 53.
All right, we'll look out for that camp battle then. You heard it here first.
already make. I have to at least throw a couple of predictions out there early on.
I'm all for it, man. Who we got?
Was a pre-draft visit too at that.
A lot of these guys kind of towards the end were pre-draft visits and just guys that they got familiar with character-wise and wanted to see how they fit in with the building.
And they say they do that a lot too, which I know I've heard it before. So that way, when it does come to that UDFA time, by getting him in Lambeau, seeing the culture, the Packer way, that could be that potential selling point to get him to sign with the green and gold.
Who do we got for our 3rd, 7th-round pick?
Yeah, we have Adrian Amos, safety, Alabama.
Yeah, right.
The next Adrian Amos. No, I'm kidding. Anthony Johnson Jr., safety, Iowa State. Very cerebral player. You listen to his interview with the Packers media. You love everything about him. He's another player that he fell to the 7th, but others seen that he could have went earlier.
Yep.
He played cornerback his whole entire career for the Cyclones and then switched to safety his final year because his coaching staff said, if you want to make the NFL, this is your best path to do so. He did that unwaveringly, and he played a lot of special teams. Another way that he's going to make this 53, also knowing that Tariq Carpenter, someone that you like, is potentially switching to linebacker. So that leaves open a safety spot. And yeah, this is a guy that because of his smarts, I think he's going to have the ability to learn the playbook quickly. That I do like him. I don't think he's going to be a starter at safety, but hey, nice little backup.
From what I'm hearing, he's a high motor, high hustle guy. So, and then finally to wrap up this draft, with the 256th pick, we get Grant Delbosa out of Charlotte. He has a really interesting story. I really hope this dude makes the team. During COVID, he worked at Walmart. Then he jumps back onto Charlotte because he didn't get a D1 any offers to play college football. So he was going to have to walk on somewhere. So then he walks on to Charlotte, and his first pass goes for 60 yards and a touchdown.
That's that Cinderella story that you like. I even put a note next to him, put DD, Donald Driver, drafted in the 7th round. He didn't live in a U-Haul trailer like Donald Driver did at one point. But yeah, the story's there. 3 jobs, college or his season cut short because of COVID. He had a player quarterback that was able to get him on to Charlotte. The rest is history with him. He's a big player, 6'3", had almost 800 yards, 9 touchdowns. Great on the fade routes, also on the sidelines as well. He can beat you deep. He's somebody that I'm sure not only us, but many of others people are really going to be pulling for throughout this training camp. You always have to love the backstory to players like Grant.
But that kind of wraps up the draft coverage. The rookies do minicamp next week. And this is kind of where the season starts to get rolling. I mean, we're going to be in June pretty soon here, and then we're going to go through, OTAs, and before you know it, we'll be talking preseason and where these guys are lining up.
100%. This is stuff that gets me giddy, Dave. I don't know about you, but my favorite time of the year is not only the draft, but also seeing roster battles and minicamp, OTAs, and you get us into training camp, and we're well underway to starting the 23 season for your green and gold.
The only thing missing this year that's been here the last 13 years is we have no hopes or dreams of hoisting the Lombardi. Yeah. It's going to be just a pure talent evaluation this year, which will be nice to lay back and crack some cold ones and just kind of see how these guys mature and grow and progress.
And that
ups and downs.
Yeah, and that's a really good point before signing off. David Bakhtiari mentioned not only that Lucas Finesse looks like a Ken Barbie doll, but also that Packer fans such as us who are in their 30s, we don't know what we're going to do. Like, we don't know what to think right now. This is completely new territory. We had 30 years of Hall of Fame quarterback experience. This is a new ball game for us. Another reason to tune into Packers on the Rocks, to see our unique perspectives and our experience going through these next few seasons, or even let's hope it's not the 70s and the 80s all over again. Dave, let's go ahead and sign off. Another episode in the books.
Yeah,
And we have
absolutely.
some more holes to plug and safety and O-line as we go along.
Man, take it easy. Have a good week.
Cheers, Dave.